Hello, welcome back to learning how to divide polynomials, otherwise known as polynomial long division. We're going to work several more problems in this lesson to build your skills. But one thing I want to point out to you that we are going to cover in this lesson that's a little bit different is that when you set the problem up, every one of the polynomials on the outside or underneath the division sign, you have to have all of the powers of the polynomial listed there. So if your original problem is missing an exponent, then you have to insert a 0 for that particular exponent. So for instance, if you have an x cubed plus an x, and then the x squared term is really missing, then in order to do the polynomial long division, we have to actually put 0x squared in there. When we get to problem number 3 in this set of lessons, I'll show you how to do that. So we're going to get some practice with it, but I want you to keep that in the back of your mind. So for instance, if you're doing a problem like this that says, let's divide the polynomial 4t squared minus 4 times t plus the number 1, and we're going to divide that by 2t plus 1. All right, so the first thing is, the problems are usually given to you in this format, so the first thing you have to do is write them under the division symbol and so on, like we know how to do. And so you're dividing by this, so this goes on the outside. So I'll put a little arrow here saying we're kind of converting the problem into the following form. 2t plus 1, this goes on the outside. Then you need to draw a division kind of symbol here, and then this term goes on the inside because this is what we're dividing, essentially. So we have 4t squared. Give yourself some room so you don't crowd things up too much. 4t plus 1. Now, I'll kind of go over it several times, but just to kind of bring it home here. You see on the outside, we have a t term, t to the first power, and then no t at all. So we have a t to the first, t to the 0 is kind of invisible there. So we don't have any missing terms here. Here we have a t squared, then a t term, then a constant term. Again, we don't have any t terms missing there. And so in a future problem, if you're missing, like if we were missing the 4t, if this problem were 4t squared plus 1, then underneath the house, we would have to put a 0t. You have to have a placeholder for every power of the variable you're dividing. All right, we talked about that a little bit in the last lesson. All right, so what we're going to do now is focus first only on the first term out here and the first term in here. 2t times something has to give me this. Now, we all know that 2 times 2 is 4, so 2 is the number that goes here. And then t times something will give me t squared. T times t gives me t squared. So this is how we're going to do every problem. You look at the first term on the outside and the first term on the inside. You're ignoring the 1, you're ignoring everything after, and this is kind of analogous in long division of numbers, how you kind of focus on the first digit on the inside as you start the process. Now, once we have this written here, we start to multiply down by this term. 2t times 2t is 4t squared. It should always match what you have above. But don't forget, you have a 2t plus times a positive 1, so you have a positive 2t. Now, when you do the next step, you're always subtracting. Be careful. Do not just put a minus sign here, because this, of course, looks like a minus sign, but you're going to forget eventually, if you put it here like this, that really this is a minus 2t. So what I always tell people to do is put a little circle around it. That kind of forces me to remind myself that it's 4t squared minus 4t squared. That gives me 0. And then negative 4t minus this 2t. It has to be a minus, so that's going to give me negative 6t. One of the biggest problems in polynomial long division is when you're doing the subtraction, you're not careful, and you have to make sure that it's the first thing minus the second thing. So it's a negative 6t. You're not adding these things together. Once you've done the subtraction, you drag the next digit down, which is a positive 1. Right? Now that we've done the subtraction and we drop the next digit down, then we focus again to this term and then the first term here. So again, you're only looking at first terms. 2 times something gives me negative 6. That has to be a 2 times a negative 3 to give me the negative 6.